What's going on, guys? Almost ready now to start the wildcard playoffs, but first, I wanted to show you guys how our rookies did and how some others did throughout the season. Now, we'll first look at our first round pick, Nate Potter, left tackle out of Boise State. Need a guy that can stay around for a long time to anchor that left side of the line. And I would say he had a great rookie season. I noticed the difference between running behind him and running behind who we had last year. Now we look at our fifth round pick, David Molk, center out of Michigan. We drafted him in the fifth round because we needed a center. We did not keep John Sullivan, and he really got beat up this year. He allowed 13 sacks, which was in the top 10 in the NFL, so I'm not expecting him to get very many attribute increases, if any, and he might need to be replaced soon as well. We'll look at Jamel Fleming, our second round pick out of Oklahoma, a cornerback we have playing on the outside. He's very fast, he's good in man coverage, and I think he had a good season. He led the NFL in pass deflections, had 3 interceptions. But it's the same situation as Nate Potter. You can't just have one great guy in your secondary or one great guy on your offensive line. You got to work around those guys, keep them around, and then build off of them. Jared Crick, now defensive tackle out of Nebraska. I kind of actually question this pick now. It was a third-round pick, and I took a defensive tackle that I knew was going to be on the bench. Christian Ballard emerged this year, and Jared Crick is the fourth, I believe, on the depth chart. So he didn't get much playing time at all, except when both Ballard and K-Dub were off the field. But I'll probably evaluate him and Remy to see who should be the third defensive tackle. Now we have Garrick Williams, fourth-round middle linebacker, who I was really impressed with his play. But just like last year, E.J. Henderson got hurt a number of times, as did Garrick Williams this season and Donald Butler. So we've ran with 3 different middle linebackers. Add Xavier Adibi to that list, who is probably one of the most consistent players on this team. But he is a third stringer, and I would need Garrick Williams or Donald Butler to really solidify that starting position, or we're going to have to find somebody else. And now we have Dyrell Roberts, 6th-round draft pick out of Virginia Tech to play wide receiver. We picked up Plaxico Burress. He played very well this season. And Dyrell just pretty much got buried on the depth chart with guys like Noel Devine stepping up for Percy Harvin, and Devin Aroma should do, and Emmanuel Arsenault catching a lot of passes. Roberts doesn't have a very high potential, so we'll see how much longer he sticks around. And finally, Kenyon Barner, our 7th-round draft pick out of Oregon that we got mainly to be a return specialist, and he did all right this season, 1 touchdown, but I think I'm going to have him battle with somebody next year in preseason. Maybe pick up somebody in the 7th round or some guy that's undrafted. We'll see what happens anyways. I always like doing these little position battles, especially at things like returner. And here you can see his return stats. Had a decent year, nothing too exciting, but he did get us some good field position on punts, and that's what I mainly remember about him. And now we'll check out some other players. Here's Brandon Whedon. It should be Brandon Whedon. And he was drafted 2nd overall in this draft, actually. Luck was not the first quarterback taken. And he was the AFC's Rookie of the Year. So he had 13 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, 2,022 yards. Not a great statistical season, but maybe the Browns have something good going. And I've been asked about Kellen Moore, and he was drafted in the 3rd round by Miami. And he just hasn't played that much this year. 4 touchdowns to 1 interception, 858 yards. It looks to me like he played pretty decent in the time that he had. And now we have Houston quarterback Case Keenum, who got drafted by the Falcons, and he actually did get a lot of playing time. Matt Ryan must have gotten hurt this season. 1,033 yards and 4 to 8 touchdown and interception. Not a very good statistical season, but we'll look at Ryan Lindley. We got a chance to see him in Week 17, and he led the 49ers to a win over us. And he had 18 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, almost 2,500 yards, and looks like he started about every game. And I thought he played really well. Andrew Luck, now the guy who's going to probably be the number 1 overall pick this coming draft, was drafted 7th in this draft by the Jacksonville Jaguars after previously taking Blaine Gabbert in the 1st round. So, 1,500 yards, 7 to 10 touchdown interception, and 0 wins as a starter. Not very impressive. Landry Jones, drafted by Detroit, and it looked like he was starting over Stafford for a while, but Landry got knocked out for the season. But we did get an opportunity to see him in Week 7 and Week 9, and that was actually his best statistical games against us. So we'll see what goes forward in Detroit, if they're going to stick with Stafford or if they're going to go with Landry Jones. And here is your Rookie of the Year, Dominique Davis, quarterback out of East Carolina, playing for the Washington Redskins, 20-13 in touchdown interception. nearly 3,000 passing yards. An impressive season for Dominique Davis. Looks like to be the quarterback of the future over in Washington. Now, Robert Griffin, a Heisman finalist this year, playing for Seattle, was actually hurt for the entire season in this one, and his speed is a lot lower than it should be. But he played pretty well in his opportunities, but after his injury, they had to turn it over to Josh Portis. And now here's a couple of running backs to check out. We got Dan Herron out of Ohio State playing for the Denver Broncos, and not a very good yards per carry at all. Not a very impressive season for Dan Herron, but we'll check out Trent Richardson, another Heisman finalist, drafted by the Buccaneers. So they got Blunt and Richardson, and not a very high yards per carry for him, as he looks to be splitting time with LeGarrette Blunt. Now Mark Tyler out of USC playing for San Diego, and he had a lot of carries this year. I'm not sure if Ryan Matthews was injured. I would assume so. Not a terrific season, but I think Matthews gets hurt too much anyways. And I've also had some requests to check out the Pro Bowl teams that are going to be playing this season. And you guys also have wanted me to play the Pro Bowl before the Super Bowl happens, so I will be playing the Pro Bowl when that time comes around. And here are the rosters. First, checking out the AFC roster. A lot of familiar faces. Probably not going to see too many weird things until a few more years into this season. Players getting older. I've already seen it happen with Steve Hutchinson. He's down to an 84 overall, no longer an elite offensive lineman. And we'll see some younger players emerge. I've already seen a couple. And really, Matt Dodge made it to the Pro Bowl. Here's the NFC, so we'll get to see some of our players that made it. We got Adrian Peterson. Of course, he had a fantastic season. And Steve Smith's playing for the Redskins. Still Calvin Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald in top form. Jimmy Graham and Brent Selleck make it to the Pro Bowl as well. Offensive linemen, we don't have anybody going. Our best offensive lineman is obviously Nate Potter. But we do have a terrific front four, and Christian Ballard, the most votes out of any defensive tackle, is going along with Kevin Williams. And I did check a few weeks ago, and Brian Robinson was on there, but apparently he has been passed up, and we don't have anybody from the secondary going. But this is obviously the team I'll be playing as when I do the Pro Bowl game. And Devin Hester goes as a returner. He passed up Kenyon Barner. I checked up a couple of weeks ago, and Barner was actually going to be slotted to go to the Pro Bowl, but apparently he got passed up as well. And now here are the yearly awards. Peyton Manning is your MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. Gerard Mayo is the Defensive Player of the Year. Dominique Davis, I've already talked about this. Offensive Rookie of the Year, followed by Lindley and Weeded. I'll see if I can edit his name. And now defense, and the Broncos have another great player by the last name of Miller with Julian Miller. And Peyton Manning is going to be the best quarterback of the year. Best running back is actually going to go to Rashard Mendenhall. He did have more touchdowns than Adrian Peterson by 6. Adrian had more yards. Best receiver goes to Wes Welker, who was actually in the top 5 voting for MVP award, which would have been pretty sweet to see a wide receiver win that award. Best offensive lineman, guys that are all great. The Saints are absolutely spoiled to have Jari Evans and Carl Nix, two fantastic guards. Best linebacker, Gerard Mayo, and Daryl Smith behind him, and Sam Acho coming out of nowhere out of Texas, and he's in the top 5. Best DB, Asamoah and Revis are on there, but they're towards the bottom. Terrell Thomas on top. Best kicker goes to Connor Barth, and Orlando Mara. I see him in the top 5. I just laugh because of that missed kick he had against the Vikings. Tomlin is your coach of the year, and next episode will be Wild Card Weekend against the St. Louis Rams. I know you guys are anxious for the playoffs to start, and I plan on bringing that episode to you guys real soon. But quickly, here are a couple videos for you guys to check out. On top was the last episode I posted, which was the final statistics. It shows my Vikings, and it shows the entire NFL and the league leaders. And on the bottom, we have Week 17, our last game we played against the San Francisco 49ers. But now it's time for the playoffs, so next episode will be against the St. Louis Rams, and I will see you guys later.